They say I might as well face the
Hello and welcome to Game of Moans, a podcast where we are rewatching Game of Thrones an episode at a time. I am Chris Bolton. With me, as always, our very own mountain, Mr. Mark Williams.
Hello.
And we're up to already season 3, episode 6, The Climb. Now, I remember the title of this episode.
Yeah.
For some reason. I don't know why, but when I saw the title come up, I was like, oh, I remember the title of this one. As I watched it, I remembered some bits of the episode, but I don't know why the title itself stuck out to me.
I know why it does for me, and it's the reason I actually started watching the show. When this first came out, let's say it was Sean Bean sitting on an iron throne, on a throne of swords in armor with a sword, and I could give two fucks. It immediately wasn't my type of thing, as we've discussed before, and I kind of let it pass me by. I wasn't interested. I mean, I was working abroad, and it wasn't things weren't exactly great anyway. So the last thing I had time for was a TV show that had no appeal to me, and came home, came back to the UK, and I was out walking one day. And Kevin Smith did one of his podcasts, and they were talking about this episode. And right at the start of it, it's spoilers for this if you haven't seen it. And at this point, I had no fucking interest in watching it. I thought, you know what, I'll just get them. I'm out for a walk. I've got shit all else to do, so I'll just leave it on. And so I was listening to it, and he was talking about Jon and Ygritte and their storyline leading up right up to the very last shot in this episode. And the way he was describing it, the way he was talking about their story, and sort of, again, some of the visuals and the way it was all put together, it made me think, oh, hang on, this might not just be the usual fucking swords and horses bullshit. There might actually be a story to this. So, and this, I mean, I said last week, this is probably the most important episode for me. It's because this is the one I went, oh yeah, I quite want to watch that, and that's where this came from. So I remember it as being The Climb. And obviously the act of climbing the wall, because this is the one that first convinced me I wanted to watch it.
Yeah. Wow, it's a real fucking shame I'm about to take a giant shit all over it then, innit?
No, not at all. It had significance. I didn't say it was good.
Yeah, it could be good, and the Jon and Ygritte stuff particularly is very good in this episode. The problem is, it doesn't fucking belong in this episode.
No,
it belongs...
a continuation of the fuck up we had last week.
Yeah, and the stuff from last week should come after the stuff from this week in order for the stuff from this week to be properly impactful. Correct. That last shot in particular is great. It looks like a bad matte painting, which we'll get onto when we talk about it. I'm sure I wouldn't have noticed that at the time, though. Obviously, TVs are a lot higher definition now. Even though this was a relatively short time ago. But the main problem with it is it's meant to be this big grand payoff, but we already had that last week.
Yes.
But we will talk about that when we get to it. I did last week say that I think there's a lot of bleed between these two episodes.
Yeah.
It is a real shame because I think both of the episodes, if somebody were to just sit down now and take a pair of scissors to them and reorganize them, there are two excellent episodes.
Definitely.
Sadly, we don't get that. So to start this one then, to kick it right off. Now, look, we've had some fucking boring openings this season.
Yes.
This is absolutely the most tedious
what was the fucking point
of the
in
show.
This?
Look, we get some nice backstory. We get some good character stuff for Sam. He's highborn and he has some dragon glass and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And it's some nice stuff for their relationship. But this doesn't belong at the top of the fucking episode.
No,
for
absolutely
not. For Christ's sake. Like, this, I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? At least with the other boring episodes, you can kind of... or boring openings, right? You can kind of understand what they were going for with the scenes. They just didn't pull it off. This is just fucking ridiculous.
This is just we've got them at location. We need to do something with them because we haven't seen them for 2 weeks. Let's just start with them. I mean, bear in mind, okay, we had events last week, and some of them should have happened this week, and we've talked about that already, and we talked about length last week. But of the stuff we do get right now in this episode, you can start with Jon and Ygritte. You can start with Beric and Arya and the Brotherhood. You can start at King's Landing. You can start with Rob because fucking hell, this should be fucking Rob's season. You can start with the ramifications of what he did at the end of last week if they'd done it properly and done it at the end of last week. But no, we start on sitting around a campfire that's not fucking firing because he doesn't know how to build a fire, which, I like putting, I put lots of stuff on a fire as well because it goes up better. But, so we get that, and there's some nice character work, but why is anybody going to be compelled to watch after the first ad break? Which, bear in mind, fucking 2 minutes of credits before this as well. So watching in the US on HBO, I don't know if you get ads on HBO. Actually,
don't get ads on HBO.
Okay.
No.
But if it's a conventional channel, you'd be thinking, right, I've seen the credits, I've seen this scene, and I want the fucking ad break.
Yeah, it's a fucking ridiculous opening. I mean, if nothing else, yes, I totally agree with you. We should be spending more time with Rob, or you could open with John and Egret, who are going to be the focus this episode.
Yeah.
All of these things. But even if you don't want to do any of that, you could open with the very next fucking scene with Osha's pissing contest.
Yes.
Like, at least that's got some tension to it, and at least you would have had some nice, strong, punchy visuals to open with. Yeah. But instead, we start a scene right at the fucking beginning again, and it's a boring fucking scene. It's visually flat because it's nighttime.
Yeah.
Terrible. It's fucking awful. Sam's song, I appreciate the attempt at subtext at least. But it's fucking on the nose, innit? I mean...
Oh, absolutely.
We can be a bit more subtle in that, but I appreciate the attempt, at least. They did try subtext. So, last week themes, this week subtexts.
Yeah,
a little bit at a time.
It is the Wonder Twins writing this week as well, so,
Yeah, no fucking surprises.
Yeah, you have to dial back expectations a little bit.
Yeah, so look, that's about all I'm going to say about that scene, because it's boring as hell and there's fuck all to say about it.
The one thing I did like, I mean, we saw him find the Dragonglass dagger and not really know what it was. So they're keeping up with that, this whole thing of, he doesn't know what it is, but he's carrying it around, because that will pay off later on. Again, probably because it's in the fucking book and it's an event that needs to happen. But I like the fact they actually thought to keep that in there. At this point, I think they may have actually read the book.
Wow, they can read.
Or somebody's read the book and given them the cliff notes, maybe, I don't know. But no, at this point, at least they are going, all right, well, we need to do that because somebody has read ahead and told us that's important.
Yeah, okay.
So credit for that, though. That, including that, it was quite important.
Yeah, look, like I said, the backstory and stuff like that, and what the scene accomplishes is fine. It's not actually a bad scene. It's just in the wrong fucking place.
Yeah.
We get this pissing contest then with Osha. I'm fucking bored of it already. Like, this can fuck all the way off. I did laugh out loud about the line about she says something what is it she says about the rabbits? I can't remember now. It was last week when I watched this. So there's this pissing contest about skinning rabbits, and some of the dialogue is quite funny.
Yeah. Again, I'd imagine it's from the book, though.
I would have thought so. Yeah. But what is this doing for us, really?
Well, this is, the whole thing now. We get that they're on the run, and we get that Bran's on this fucking story. No, he's on his way to a story which we're hoping is going to be important, because otherwise it's fucking boring. But they've not really. It's like they're on this mission, but we don't know what the mission is. We don't know where they're trying to go. We don't know what the point of getting there is, what they're attempting to do when they get there. At the moment, they've just, the kid from Love Actually found them and gone, yeah, come with me.
Yeah, it's
and they talk about going north. They're going north, but not to the wall. What? I fucking. Oh.
Well, we get the revelation that sort of Bran knows about John, don't we? He learns that in this scene, but
yes,
that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really think that ever really goes anywhere.
No, you get I can't remember his fucking name now. Jojen. So he has some form of fit. And then wakes up and says that, no, I saw Jon Snow. How the fuck do you know what Jon Snow looks like, kid? But I saw Jon Snow and he's surrounded by enemies. Well, yeah, because he's under fucking cover. We already know this. This isn't, you're not doing anything for us, because if you're going to tell us something like that, it needs to be something we don't already know, because it needs to put a bit of drama back into it. We've already seen fucking Jon Snow joining the enemy weeks ago. Yeah. So this isn't anything new.
No, we don't need this. This whole scene could be lost. Save for some back and forth about the rabbits, which was funny, but I don't need it. And we've talked in the first season, certainly, where there was a lot of filler, and this kind of feels like that. It's like, well, why do we actually? It might be in the book, but the books are fucking over 1,000 pages long. This is a TV show. It's not a book. You have to be economical with it. You can't just go, it's in the text, so we have to do it. And the stuff they leave out, or the stuff they do merge, is stuff they could get away with actually doing properly.
and the stuff they leave in, it's fucking horseshit a lot of the time.
Yeah, it absolutely
it's just
is.
Boring.
It absolutely is. But thankfully, in the next scene, we get on to kind of the bones of this episode, and it's very much a John and Ygritte episode. I will never tire of John and Ygritte, ever. They're wonderful. The scene between them here is wonderful. You know, of course she's got him fucking fingered.
Of course she has.
She knows exactly what he's up to and has done all along, because he knows nothing. You know, but her threat to him is just so beautifully delivered. It's so simple and so beautifully delivered. She just tells him straight to his face, looking him straight in the eye, "Don't ever betray me."
Yeah.
And she plays it perfectly, and then she sticks the landing and breaks the tension absolutely perfectly as well. You know, as the scene's ending, it's "Don't ever betray me, or I'll cut your pretty little cock off and hang it around your neck."
Yeah. But not only that. I mean, the one thing I did notice, which I appreciated, and it was a nice bit of subtlety in it, is that her line, "Don't ever betray me," and it's almost a look, and you can read it two ways. One is that, of course, I'd never betray you. Why would you even say that? But knowing full well he already has. But he can't meet her eye, and I expected her to call him on it when he says, "Oh, I wouldn't, I won't," or whatever he says. I expected her to call him on the fact that he was looking at his fucking shoes when he said it. But that kind of went out the window, and then you get her, I say, breaking out and saying, "I'll cut your cock off and wear it on my neck," and then that kind of goes, and then we move on. But it was one of those. I thought that it was overlooked slightly. I was expecting more from it.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say I noticed it being overlooked. I thought the scene played perfectly. I just feel
it played well. I thought because of the way it was shot, because you're in on a sort of mid close on him, is that it was very obvious that he was not looking anywhere fucking near her when he said, "No," when she says, don't ever betray me," and he says, "I won't." He might as well have been looking up his fucking arse.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'd rather it was played slightly more ambiguous like that, to be honest. I mean, at this point, we don't really know which side John's going to come down on.
Well,
and
no, that's right.
Giving him the big kind of close-up as he delivers it suggests, you know, that maybe he's still very definitively with the Night's Watch.
Yeah, and that's fine. I don't mind that. And that's a definite choice, and I have no issue with that. The problem I have is because it was so fucking obvious in the shot, and she is so astute about everything else.
Yeah.
I just don't know how she missed it. I don't know whether she's missed it and it's just being fucking stupid, or whether she's chosen to ignore it. And I just thought there's something that I don't think it ever pays off, but I think it's there for a reason. It's done as a choice, but then that shot and that look is done as a choice, but then it doesn't go anywhere.
I mean, it's also whether creatives actually noticed that choice, you know, whether Kit Harington was directed to play the scene like that, or whether he decided to play the scene like that, which is absolutely correct, and then they don't even realize what they've got.
Maybe.
Which I
that's
wouldn't
entirely
put past
possible.
The fucking idiots. So that's good stuff. It belongs in last week's episode, but it's good stuff. We get some more training for Arya. I mean, it's more training for Arya. You know, she's growing as a character. It's good, but it's meh. That is what it is.
But the thing is, I mean, I'm not being funny. We get a lot of this, I think, in this season and then possibly into the next season, where there is a lot of training with her. But I mean, she has no path at the moment, so it's kind of pointless. Yeah,
it is pointless. It just very much feels like they need to show us Arya.
It's kind of, again, we have her here. We might as well use her.
Yeah, the Red Lady gives us some backstory on the brothers. It's short, it's concise.
Still fucking boring, though.
Clumsy, it's clumsy. It's serviceable, is what it is.
Yeah, it is. And to be fair, I mean,
it's not bad, but it's not good either.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is that the last two episodes, this one and last week, Thoros of Myr has been quite entertaining. It's been quite interesting. And there was one thing I forgot to mention last week, which I thought was fucking cool, is that we talked about the flaming sword, and we learned in the pissing contest before the pissing contest between Jorah and Barristan, that the sword used to belong to Thoros of Myr, and he's given it up. So I mean, again, at some point you're expecting some payoff for that as well, because otherwise, why fucking tell us? But yeah, so we get the whole thing where fucking Melisandre turns up with some people and all the rest of it, and yeah, we at this point we don't really know what's going to happen, because as with anything religious and any sort of show like this, you never know whether they're different factions of the same fucking thing, whether they're Catholics and Protestants, or whether they're fucking, there's something bigger at play. You don't know how it's going to play out. But then it's a bit, you get some backstory, but it's kind of anticlimactic because nothing really happens.
No, that's exactly what I've written. So it's kind of a scene of two parts. And we get this clumsy backstory to start with, and then we move on into the cave, and we get the scene in the cave, which is good and is well written. The lines are well delivered. It's quite creepy, but we're just going nowhere.
Yeah, we're going through the motions of the book. We're filling an episode.
We don't need to know any of it. It's good. It's a good scene. Once we get into the cave, the dialogue is good as well. It's well handled, as I say, but we just don't fucking need it.
No, that's right.
I'd rather be with John and Egret at this point. This is supposed to be their episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Then the end of the scene is pretty nicely done. It's very rare that they manage to pull something off well, but we get we close on the line from the Red Lady. You have someone he needs, and then we cut to Gendry.
Whose fucking beard has now gone to shit again.
Whose beard's gone to shit again, but wouldn't you know it, we do actually understand how to edit scenes together in a linear narrative and tell a story, and we do understand the principle of montage. So why the fuck are these two episodes so nonsensical? But it's done nicely here. We don't need clumsy exposition because you just gave it to us in the visuals. It's good.
And for once, we don't start. No, we don't start at the beginning of their scenes. We come straight into the scene with Gendry and the Archer, where he's talking about the different types of arrowhead, isn't he?
Yes.
So again, and it's just one of those. Well, we don't care where the conversations come from. They're just in the middle of something, because I say it would have been so. Again, given what we've seen so far, it would have been so tempting just to go, oh, okay, well, we set that really nicely, and then we're going to have a 5-minute talk about the fucking trees or something before we get into the scene. So yeah, you're right. It was done quite nicely, and then you get the whole setup, and I think I know. So they put Gendry in chain, in shackles, and put him on the back of the paddy wagon or whatever it is.
Yeah, and again we get some good stuff here. She says to him, you're more than they can ever be. You will make kings rise and fall, which is good and adds to the story that we're being led to believe that Gendry's going to have. But it goes fucking nowhere.
Well, this is it. And obviously we're nowhere near season 8 yet. But I mean, in context of where season 8 goes, the only important part of this scene is the 3 lines that she speaks to Arya.
Which, in all fairness, is probably the best seeding in the show. To be fair,
it's probably in the book, and they didn't realise they had it until they got to the end and went, oh, fuck, we need to finish that, because they're in the same place again.
I think maybe it is in the book. I don't know. But I certainly believe that it's not actually seeding, because I don't think they planned this.
Well, given all the rest of the shit that was seeded and didn't ever happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about how this pays off in season 8, because it is unquestionably the thing that has annoyed me most about this entire show. The payoff to this is the point where I had a rather lengthy text rant at a friend of ours who no longer watches the show. I just needed to rant at someone. I was like, the payoff from this scene in a few seasons time was the point where I, in the text, actually said, that is it. I am fucking done. I will finish the show because I'm this far, but I have zero interest anymore. And I meant it. I could give 2 fucks about that finale because they fucked it there for me.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, this was probably the second most contentious point of the final season.
And for me, it was the most contentious.
Yeah, for me too.
Absolutely fucking wrong.
Yeah, they just completely fucking screwed the pooch on it. I liked the event, but it just didn't fit. It didn't work in what had happened before and what was going to happen after.
Not at all. It was a waste of 8 years.
Well, it was, and particularly a very important event at the end of season 5, beginning of season 6.
Specifically that event, yes.
It completely pissed on it. It made it entirely pointless. And since the show was finished, some people have tried to kind of retcon that into something else. and it just doesn't fucking work. And when we get to season 8, I'll tell you why for me it doesn't work.
We'll move on from that now because we're kind of talking in riddles to avoid spoilers, and I'm sure it's not very interesting. People that know what we're talking about will know what we're talking about, and they may disagree with me, in which case, as always, you can hit me up on Twitter if you like, but we won't discuss it on the show.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, but it is as accidental as I believe it is. It is good seeding. I still disagree with the final payoff, but it is seeded well, even if it is accidental. We get probably my favorite line of the week in the next scene. It's more throwaway than some of the other favorite lines, but it's just more than anything down to Egret's again absolute pitch perfect delivery and nailing it as they're climbing the wall, and she just looks down at him with a cheeky smile and says, "Are you staring at my ass, Jon Snow?" Yeah. As they're hanging on to this wall for dear fucking life.
Well, that's it. And I mean, you get this bit. So they've started climbing, and you see this this whole this expedition going up the wall. And yeah, it's are you staring at my ass, Jon Snow? And he just doesn't know how to answer because he feels like, from the look on his face, he feels like he should be saying, "No, of course I'm not." But also he's just like, how the fuck can you be thinking that when we're climbing a 700-foot wall? Oh, that was one thing I did think with the first scene, actually, where having Sam telling Gilly about the wall rather than having somebody explain to Jon how fucking tall it was and how hard it's going to be to climb. That, I thought, was a nice bit of setup as well. Actually, I'll give him credit for that in the first scene.
Yeah, it's just a shame the first scene's so fucking boring, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's one of those you could have had it before, maybe one or two scenes before this one, but after something more interesting to start, and it would have been quite a nice setup for it. But as it was, it was an interesting line. I thought it was something they did relatively well, but it just didn't belong there.
Yeah. Now, for the rest of the episode, this expedition climbing the wall is great. Yes. It is. The action is perfectly handled. It's very tense. They break the tension perfectly at moments like this one. Tension release, and they absolutely nail it here. We're seeing people struggle on the wall, and Egret's just pissing about and having a good time. And of course, then that will come back and bite her on the ass later on. That's all good drama. It all works very well. It's well shot, well acted. It's all good stuff.
The one shot I didn't like, actually, you had the way it's so framed. You look down and they do the sort of the forced perspective bit where obviously they're moving forward and zoom, or they're moving backwards and zooming in. So you get this sort of almost vertigo type effect.
Yeah,
that's the one. That's what I was looking for. And to me, that just didn't work because the image wasn't clear enough, and it just made me feel a bit dizzy.
Yeah, the effects really aren't great in this episode. But I think the action's handled well.
Oh, the action was brilliant.
This line it didn't even make me laugh out loud or anything like that in the way that some of my favourite lines in other weeks have.
I just had a little chuckle. I just had a little right chuckle and a smile.
Perfectly paced and delivered. Does exactly what it needs to do to the scene. Gives it a little bit of a deft touch as well. And God, I just love Egret. God, I love her so much. She's just fantastic, isn't she? So yeah, that's good stuff. I'm not going to mention names, but here comes the character that we all know and have come to love and or hate in equal measure. In the next scene, he's out in, let's just call him our ranger, which is what he was last week, I guess. Yeah. He's out in full fucking force. The mask has slipped entirely here.
It's brilliant. I really enjoyed the scene, not just because fucking Theon got maimed a little bit. But yeah, it was an interesting scene, and we still don't know who he is, but we're starting to get some character for him. And we get the thing there where you see that everything he did. Now we know he fucked Theon over the last couple of weeks, so we didn't see Theon last week, which is why last week was a more tolerable episode than it probably deserved to be, just because Theon wasn't in it. But we saw a couple of weeks ago where he is playing with him, so he let him, he helped him escape, and then he killed the guards for him, and then he led him straight back into the fucking cell, which I thought was it's an absolute mindfuck. And then this week he just straight back on with that. And we just see him playing games, which Theon at this point is, for all of his talk, he's always been a very sour, very angry little boy. He's got nothing about him really. He's just fucking grown. He's grown up, but he's still a fucking toddler. and all of a sudden he just doesn't know what he's seeing because somebody's not playing straight with him, and he doesn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah. It's all of this stuff between the two of them this week is great. It's interesting for me. This is the first time. Obviously, this is the first rewatch I've done of the show. Probably the last rewatch I'm going to do of the show as well, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But
well, to be fair, I think we probably ruin it for ourselves by doing this show.
Yeah, it's not much fun, if I'm honest. The first time through, I hated this character. And I hated him in the best possible way, I guess. But I had a real visceral hatred of this character.
But that's what's supposed to happen, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Played for and got, and that is absolute credit to everyone involved. But I just couldn't wait for him to get his comeuppance, and when he did, it's one of my favorite moments in the show. But that hate was very real. It wasn't like a Joffrey kind of hate where I'm just like, oh, you little cunt. You know, I really hated this character.
Yeah.
I don't know what's changed on this watch through, but I absolutely fucking love this performance. I am fucking loving everything he's doing. The sheer glee.
Oh, it's shithouse, yeah, it's absolute finest.
Yeah, it's absolute top level shithousing. You're right. He's playing this game. It's just fucking great. I thoroughly enjoyed everything about this scene. The fact that he's torturing the shit out of Theon obviously helps.
It doesn't hurt. Well, it hurts Theon, but it doesn't hurt anything else. I won't give it away, but in the next couple of weeks he does something, and there's a line that immediately follows that where he just mercilessly mocks Theon, which always sticks in my memory. Just the delivery of it, and I'll tell you when we get it. I think it might be next week actually. But yeah, the delivery of 2 words absolutely fucking creased me for the entire episode. So
and this is the thing here. Like, I'm taking so much joy from his performance. Like, he's so funny.
Yeah.
And I don't remember this character being. I remember fucking hating him as much as I hated Theon.
Yeah, I didn't remember this early bit of him. No, I remember him breaking Theon out.
I remember becoming an absolute deplorable cunt.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I remember that. And I remember him like breaking Theon out and then capturing him because it was all a bit of a game. I remember that, but I don't remember the fun part of the torture, if you could call it such a thing.
No, neither do I.
This whole thing
I fucking love it.
Yeah, so Theon says, I'll tell you anything. Well, you've already told me everything. My daddy didn't love me. The Starks were mean to me. And it's just that fucking voice he puts on, and that was a really poor impression, I grant you, but it's just this absolute does not give a fuck mocking thing that he just does constantly.
Joyful sing-song that he adopts. Even like when they play the games and then he adds games on top of games when you get to the end, and he said, one thing, you forgot to ask if I'm a liar.
Yeah,
and
he's
thrilled about it, you know.
Yeah, and then we get a really gory bit with a finger, which I thought was fucking gross. But
he's just deliciously twisted.
Is
the best way I can describe it. Love this stuff.
This is the sort of character they were missing.
Yes,
I agree. They needed this, and then later on, there's another character in in season 7 and half of season 7 and season 8.
Yeah, but he's nowhere near as good. He's
nowhere near as good. He's there as a poor runner-up, effectively. But this is what they're kind of going for. You've had Joffrey being a cunt. Now you've got this guy, and then you'll get somebody else later on as well. But yeah, this is for me. At the moment, he's probably one of my favorite characters, just because he's enjoyed himself so much.
I totally agree. For all I love this episode being a Jon and Ygritte episode, and for all I'm gushing about how wonderful she is, he fucking runs away with this episode by a country mile. Like,
considering he's only in one scene as well.
But it's such a fucking enjoyable scene. Yeah. He's so good. He's so funny.
Yeah, it's 3 or 4 minutes, but it's probably the best of the episode.
It's a weird kind of inversion of what the scene should be, because of course it's a torture scene.
It should be really dark and really fucking
should be
twisted.
Dark and uncomfortable.
It's gross.
Like the one last week
was uncomfortable. Yeah,
like,
it is uncomfortable. Especially the bits with the finger and stuff. That is uncomfortable. But it's done in such a way that it's not in a dark and dingy dungeon. It's quite bright. You've got big windows in there with lots of light. He's very sing-song. He's very happy.
And he's
Theon's
controlling
the fucking
the
shit. Theon is just being fucking brutalized. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it feels like it's his scene. We're we're in the scene from his side, not Theon's.
Yeah.
And it's framed that way as well. And it's just this. I hope it's intentional, because if it is, I think it's one of the cleverest things they've done to date. I don't know if I can give them that much credit, but I want to, and I hope it was played for and got, because it's very, very clever and very well executed. And yeah, I absolutely love it. It's the best scene, definitely.
Yeah.
As I say, I've had my favorite line, but it's the best scene of the episode.
Yeah.
So we move on. We get it feels like we get a Rob scene because we have to have one.
Yes.
But we learn that the truce with Frey is already uneasy. We get a nice callback. Can I see her first?
Yeah.
When they're talking about marrying.
Yeah.
What's his name? I forgot his fucking name.
Edmure.
Yeah, marrying him off
to Rosalind.
Yeah, and he reacts in exactly the same way that Rob did. Can I see him first? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's good, but the scene is just functional. It's just moving the story on.
Yeah.
But
again, in all fairness, there's a nice bit with Rob. There's a nice bit with Rob where the Blackfish, whose name I can't fucking remember, he says to Edmure, makes a comment, and he says, my fist is about to acquaint itself with your teeth, or something like that.
Lines in it. Yeah.
That was good, and again, Rob diffuses that immediately. Is that no, he's made his choice. We can't force him, but I'm just going to put him in his place and remind him we're yes, okay, this is my mess, but the reason that I had to kill Karstark was because you fucking invaded somewhere I told you not to. You fucked up. You started this. You put us in a position where somebody else took advantage and did something wrong. I had to punish them, and because of that, there were consequences. This is one of those consequences. And again, he's just kind of going, well, yeah, okay, you don't have to marry if you don't want to, but this shit is kind of your fault.
Yeah, and he ends the scene nicely as well, where he sort of says, you're paying for my mistakes.
Yes.
I won't forget this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fine. It just again feels like
Don't
it's just
need it.
there because it has to be there, and we're moving the story on. But we already know that Rob is going back for this truce.
Yes.
So we don't need this. Moving on, we get a scene with Jamie and Brienne.
Yeah.
And Roose Bolton. Now, Jamie in this scene at the start, just scene stealing motherfucker. Like absolutely making a smash and grab for this scene without even saying anything. Just trying to cut his food. This is Jason Mewes level scene stealing he's got going on here. Like this is expert. Like, I could not look anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like absolutely makes a smash and grab for the scene and gets away with it.
And bearing in mind as well that in this scene, this is probably the only time where you see Brienne dressed as a woman.
Yes.
And she's in a fucking pink frilly thing, which she hates.
Yes.
And she would quite happily wrap around Roose Bolton's neck. And she's there, and she's being very dignified and very restrained. And yeah, as you said, fucking Jamie's just there trying to chop this bit of meat with a rounded side of a fork. And you just say,
it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Like some absolute top level scene stealing. And then when he does eventually get involved with the scene as well, probably runs away with the best line of it as well. Then where Brienne, it's Roose Bolton that says, "Oh, I don't drink," and he just looks at him and says, "You do realize how suspicious that is to us normal people, don't you?"
Well, there's that, and then in the next couple of lines, he makes a demand, and Roose says, "I don't think I hope you haven't forgot what happened last time you overplayed your position." Yeah. And just again, this massive shit-eating grin comes across his face.
Yeah,
and as a scene, I like it.
It's good. It's a very good scene, and it's not necessarily something that we need, but it does move the story on, and it is reasonably short, so I give it a pass. If we're gonna have filler, then let's at least have it be this good, because this is excellent. Everyone in it is at the top of their game. And speaking of excellent, we get Olenna and Tywin.
Yes.
I mean, look, we don't need to say anything, do we? Like there's plenty to say, and
there's something inherently wrong about seeing an 80-year-old woman calling somebody a sword swallower.
But
that made me. I was watching in the office, and I just burst out laughing at that point.
She's just a boss, isn't she?
It's fucking amazing.
The two of them together as well. This is just like it's a shame. I mean, the material they've got is okay.
Yeah.
But two actors of this caliber in a scene together.
Yes.
It feels like it's a real shame you just didn't give them some more meat. They do as wonderfully as you would expect with everything that they've got.
Yeah, but it's very much with what they've got.
But it is very much with what they got. They're kind of just talking around the houses a bit. But yeah, I've made a note about how flawless she is as well, where she just says he's a sword swallower through and through. Yeah. She's just great, and she delivers it without a hint of irony or anything. She's just straight down the line. There's no tongue in cheek. I'm an 80-year-old woman saying this thing. It's just straight down the line. Yeah, he likes dick. What about it?
Yeah. And to be fair as well, I mean, they're kind of playing each other. No, they know they're scoring points, and it's one of those where they kind of don't care because they know how it's going to end up anyway. They know that for all of her smart responses, she already knows that he's going to get what he wants because she's not really in a position to barter. But it's her giving as good as she gets, and I liked it.
Yeah, it's a great scene, and it does what it needs to do. And there is some good stuff in there. I just feel like, oh, come on, you could have cut back and forth to this throughout the whole episode and had their bartering going back and forth. Yes. You've got two legends on screen here.
Yeah.
Give
them 2 minutes.
Just some more great stuff from Elena and probably in terms of how well it's delivered, almost as good as Egret's line earlier on, where of course they're going back and forth, and she picks up from the sword swallow line. She says, "Oh well, we don't tie ourselves in knots over a bit of buggery, but brothers and sisters on the other hand." And the way she delivers it again is just so knowing.
But again, it's a nice reversal because he sort of challenges her to deny the rumors about Loris, but then as soon as she turns it back on him, he's just like, nope, can't hear you, la 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 la, not listening. And yeah, again, I thought it was a lovely scene.
And even just the simple basics of the alliteration of bit of buggery, and the way she just lets it roll off the tongue as if it's the most normal thing in the world to say. And it sounds like an 80-year-old woman saying it, oh, it's just a bit of buggery, dear, don't worry about it. Just absolutely nails it. There's a lot of exposition in this scene as well. They quickly sum up everything that's gone on thus far this season politically, just in case you're not paying attention.
And they do it as heavy-handed as we had.
No. And that's what my note is. That's what I was about to say. It is not. There is exposition here, but it is written fairly well, and they deliver it masterfully. We've talked before about how normally when they need to rattle stuff off like this, they give it to Tyrion, and let him handle it because Peter Dinklage does such an excellent job, and these two are easily as good, if not better. Like they absolutely breeze through this exposition. It's flawless. Everything they're doing is flawless, as you would expect. I just wish we had more of it, but I can't really criticize what's here because it's exactly what we need. Any more would have been window dressing, I guess. But again, if we're going to pad episodes out, give us more of this.
Yeah.
This is for me, this is some of the best, like when we talk about the politics of the show and people get quite hung up on it. This is politics at its best within the show. This is some of the best of that sort of political back and forth and one-upmanship. This is some of the best stuff we've seen. The scene completely understands what it needs to do and then just lets them have this tug of war. Unfortunately, the way it's shot, it completely lacks tension.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But that's not really what they're going for. They're playing it more light-hearted. They are going for the gags, and they're playing more this kind of mutual respect between the two of them, rather than the kind of tense tug of war you'd get, for instance, between, say, Cersei and Tyrion.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of likened it. There's the two scenes. There's this one, and then there's the one with Littlefinger and Varys at the end, which are very different because the way exposition's handled in that scene is just fucking awful. But I kind of likened it. So I was watching this one, and there's a book I was bought many years ago of it's short stories and short plays that Woody Allen wrote in the sort of 70s and 80s. And there's one in there between I think it's called Death Knocks, and it's about Death basically calls on somebody in the middle of the night and they end up playing bridge. But it's this sort of back and forth whereby it has the potential to be a really difficult scene, and it's only sort of 7 or 8 pages of a book. It's a very short skit. But again, it's just this constant back and forth and sparring. I nearly clipped my fingers repeatedly there. So if you did catch any, sorry about that. But yeah, it's just this back and forth and sparring. It makes what could be a very dry and very difficult conversation just flow very quickly and very naturally. And I said this scene reminded me of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a conscious choice. You know, the lack of tension is a conscious choice.
Yeah.
I maybe would have played it slightly differently, but that's choice, and so I can't fault that. What here is done very well.
Yeah.
So I'm not faulting that at all. Moving on, we get back to the wall, and things start to go south.
Yeah.
You know, people start to fall, and Jon full on heroes up.
Yeah.
He's our fucking hero. Do you remember? Jon Snow's the hero of the show. Did you remember that? I'd forgotten because he's done fuck all for the last few weeks, and we've seen very little of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember when he was going to be the big fucking great hope for everybody that he's been built up to be? Oh, yeah, here it is. He's a fucking hero, and he acts like one, and the scene is shot like he's one.
Yeah.
It's good. It's better than good. It's fucking great.
And
we need much, 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 much more of it in this fucking show.
Yeah. Again, the only thing we don't need is more of the bogus CGI.
No, because it's bad. But the scene itself is great.
The scene is great.
Save Egret. Excellent stuff. Good storytelling. Yes, it's basic. All right, this is storytelling 101. This is popcorn movie storytelling. But there's a reason you see that stuff over and over and over again.
Well, this is it. There's a reason a cliche is a cliche.
Yes, it works.
It works.
Yeah, it's handled well, it's shot well, it's performed well, the stunts are good, it's fucking great. I love it. Love it. We then get another pretty good scene, which belonged last episode, between Sansa and Iron Fist.
Yes.
It's a good scene. It's perfectly awkward. They play it very, very well, both of them.
Yeah,
it's like watch through your fingers awkward.
Yeah,
and it's meant to be.
It is, and I mean, where we've had in previous seasons where Sansa sort of fawned over Joffrey because she was a silly little girl and she thought, no, well, he's a prince, of course I'm going to love him and all the rest of it. She, having now been bitten and embittered by that experience, she's trying really fucking hard with a bloke. Obviously, we know that he takes it up the arse, but she, as far as she can say, it's just a bloke who doesn't know her and he doesn't know what's going on, and he will try as hard as she will. And I think at some point during the scene, he sort of clicks that actually, you know what, this is going to happen. I kind of just need to get on with it. And so he sort of turns and he starts opening up a bit. So he talks about how he's dreamt of a wedding since he was a little boy, and then obviously we get the stuff that people wouldn't associate a little boy thinking about a wedding. So he starts talking about dresses and flowers and feasts and things like that. And of course the bride.
And again, that's all handled well, where he's getting really excited about the dresses and things.
Yeah, and it's a really lovely scene. I thought it worked really well.
It is. It's also the best she's been all season, I think. We start to see shades of that Sansa that was starting to emerge last season. Her I think is the last line of the scene, if not certainly towards the end, where she sort of said he's describing everything that he's going to show her and things like that, and she says, "Oh, I can't wait to see it." And then there's a beat, and she says, "And to leave this place." Yeah. And her delivery of it again, she loads that final line so much.
One thing I didn't like is that they didn't let her finish this. They didn't let her own the scene. So
they never do. They
closes
all
with
season.
It closes. Yeah. She says, "Oh, and leave this place," and it's the worst, isn't it? So why did we need that?
Yep, they did exactly the same thing, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago with her and Marjorie, and it wound me up there as well.
Yeah.
You give her the power, then you take it away.
Yeah.
It is annoying.
But then transitions into another nice scene as well, with where we just have to look up and Cersei and Tyrion are on a balcony watching them.
I mean, Tyrion and Cersei are Tyrion and Cersei in this scene. It's not bad. It's not good. It's business as usual.
It is, and we get some clumsy exposition about the fact it was Joffrey who tried to kill him at the Blackwater, not Cersei. So Varys got that one wrong. But yeah, it's functional. And it just gets us to a point where he gets to have that conversation with Sansa in front of Shay.
Yeah, and as usual, there is good stuff from another great line. Jamie or not, I'm truly fucked.
Yeah,
great stuff again. Who's got, and then it's Jamie or not, I'm truly fucked. And then the transition from that, you sort of see it play across his face where he says, "Who's going to tell her?"
Yeah.
And again, just that concern for Sansa, not for himself.
Yeah.
Just that I really like this facet of his character, this, oh, fucking hell. And he's the only Lannister that's got that, of like, well, I'm fucked. But,
to be fair, he's probably the only character in the entire fucking show who's got that.
Yeah, he probably is. Well, Jon's pretty selfless as well. In fact, Jon's very selfless. He's a fucking hero.
Only at times. Other times they forget he's there. They forget.
That's the problem. Is he's not allowed to be a hero, whereas Tyrion's constantly allowed to be a hero.
But you know full well he never will be.
No, but just like he is here, he's coming to terms with the fact that he's absolutely bollocksed.
Yeah.
But he's more concerned about Sansa.
Yeah.
It's great. And it's rare to see Tyrion and Cersei bond. We've said about it before, but they do kind of bond in this moment. They both understand that this isn't what they want, but there's nothing they can do about it. It's rare to see them bond, but when they do, it's so powerful. And they're excellent when they actually break through and become brother and sister. Those small moments are excellent.
Yeah. And I think the scene starts, doesn't it, where Tyrion says, I suppose there's any way we can get out of this, and she's we could kill them both. Yeah.
And they sort of mean it. You kind of almost want to see them form this team and just try and form a coup together, but it never gets off the ground because they are too different. In the end. But yeah, it's good. Then Tyrion goes to talk to Sansa, and Shay just talks out of turn completely. Yes. It's great. I don't think I've said for a few weeks how much I like Shay.
She hasn't done a lot the last couple of weeks.
She hasn't, no. But she is a great character. Just straight into it, talking out of turn, because of course she has a great deal of sway over Sansa as well.
Yeah.
So that's a good moment.
That was quite a nice scene.
Yeah, and then. You talked about it earlier, but we move on from there to Varys and Littlefinger. And as much as I enjoy Varys, this what I've written here, I will read you my notes word for word. As much as I enjoy Varys and Littlefinger, yawn. This is starting to feel like fucking season 1.
It's a pin to play interlude.
It is an excellent scene. Again, it's a very, very good scene, but the ep's already been quite boring. There's been, this is an episode of two halves, right? All of the stuff over on the wall is really exciting. And I feel like what we need is for that to have been last week with some of the stuff that was interesting last week as well, with the fight with the Brotherhood and stuff like that. And then just put all the character stuff this week so that at least it kind of flows a bit more.
Yeah.
But we don't get that. So this ep is it's a boring episode again.
And the problem is, because they're so intrinsically linked, you would think you'd have the same writer.
Yeah.
And so I know we've got the Wonder Twins this week, and we had who was it last week? It was one I liked last week, Brian Cogman. So we had him last week, but because I know it's a series, so there's continuation all the way through anyway. But you think that because these are so interlinked, and as I said, scenes are kind of interchangeable at this point because your structure would be better for it, you would think it would be the same people having done it. And part of the problem is they've picked this up and gone, yeah, well, all right then, this is what we're doing. There needs to be more tits in this week.
Yeah.
It's just fucking frustrating. It's really annoying. Because we talked about this last week, and I won't go into it again, and I won't sort of try and do it for the episode. But if you took these 2 episodes and said, right, this is an episode, or this is a 2-parter, which we don't get 2-parters, we just get a continuous series, but this is a 2-parter, but we're going to chop it about a bit. You could make an infinitely better story from those two episodes and have very little to complain about.
Yeah, but like I said it at the top of the show, like if you were to recut both episodes, I think there's 2 very good episodes, but unfortunately we haven't got that. What we've got is 2 Like this episode is better than last week's. It's less boring than last week's, but it's still fucking boring and not a good episode, which is a shame because the good stuff is really fucking good.
Well,
it's just the rest of it is so fucking boring.
Yeah, and the thing is that we where we started this particular rant from, the scene with Littlefinger and Varys. I said they are at their sparkling fucking best as usual. You get two very good performances. The dialogue is quick. There's lots of one-upmanship, and whichever side of that particular fence you sit, if you're a fan of Varys or Littlefinger, you'll be watching going, yeah, fucking got you, mate. But the problem is we've not earned it because there's not been action, break, action. It's been slow. Oh, bit of action. Oh, slow. And we've not. The pacing is such that we just don't deserve this scene because we just like, oh, fuck's sake, where are we going with this now?
And more so then, we don't deserve the montage which comes after it.
Yeah.
With Littlefinger's voiceover, which is the best the episode's been. It's excellent. It's very stylish, very well done. But we haven't earned it.
Yeah.
Even Roz's death. Bye, Roz, by the way. Shame.
Yeah, bye, Roz.
Love you, Roz.
Terrible shame.
Yeah.
But again,
it comes so quickly. It comes straight off the back of the conversation with Varys.
It does, and I think because she's been fairly pivotal, certainly in this season, but she's been around since day one, and you kind of feel like she's earned her death.
Yeah.
But we don't see it. It happens off screen, and we just get no.
And we get no repercussion from it.
We get boobs. We get boobs with arrows sticking out of them. The only time we see Joffrey, and he's just looking a bit fucking bored. And it's like, well, what? How was this interesting? Because we haven't earned it.
Yeah, not at all. And this is another one of those deaths that's just thrown away. Like I get it.
It's nothing.
I get it. She's a minor character. She's a high-level minor character, but she is a minor character. She exists in service of the story. But we've seen enough of her that we should at least get to see her die, I think.
Or even see the build-up to that. We don't necessarily need to see her die on screen, but we can certainly have a point where we see her
earlier in the episode. We can see her leading up to it, and then the reveal can come at the end. Yes, I agree.
Just have something to set it up so that
it feels earned.
Yeah, it's not this fucking shock and all going, oh, but yeah, they killed Roz, you bastards. Well, yeah, because I'd forgotten Roz even fucking existed in this episode because we haven't seen her and she hasn't done it. There's nothing even remotely related to her. And then you get this scene, you go, oh, Roz is dead then.
And that's actually a danger with the show, and it's something that on a first watch through, it didn't happen with Roz, but on a first watch through, I know for a fact there are occasions where characters have come back or been killed or whatever, minor characters where it's been so fucking long since I've seen them because they've been discarded that they've shown back up, and I've gone, who the fuck is that again?
Yeah, and this will happen time and time again.
Yeah, I'm a bit more switched on to it now because we're doing the second watch through, and obviously we're deep diving for these episodes, so I'm paying far more attention than the average viewer. But even on a first watch through, I think it's fair to say that, you and I, and I would imagine most of you listening as well, pay more attention to this stuff than the average viewer. So if it's washing over me, the average viewer must be watching it going, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
But that never seemed to get questioned. But anyway, unfortunately, Roz is gone. The montage is great. It's just not earned.
Yeah.
We round the episode off, and I've got quite a lot to say about this, which is why we've blitzed through it. I mean, I say blitzed through. There's not much to talk about prior to this because so little fucking happens.
Yeah.
But we get this. They reach the top of the wall, and we get this scene between Jon and Ygritte, which is lovely. It's not far off a perfect scene for what it needs to do. They're having a moment at the top of the wall. They're looking out over the world. Their future is in front of them. Obviously they're about to face some horrible shit, but at this point, at this perfect moment in time, they're just a boy and a girl on top of the wall looking out at the world.
Yeah.
And they capture that perfectly.
Yeah.
But it means nothing because they've already fucked. Their relationship has already passed this point.
I was going to say they've surpassed this, and again we talked about the scenes with them last week, whereby we did, we had earned them fucking at this point, and we've had the build up of their relationship. We've had the tension. We had all that. That was great. But
there was nothing wrong with that last week. No, nothing at all.
But this should have come first. I agree.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean, and let's say, I mean, this is the bit, and so hearing Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier talk about this episode, but this scene in particular, and about how visually striking it is and all the rest of it. And this was the bit I always remember as being the reason I went to the show in the first place. But then having watched it the first time around, and say paying the amount of attention I did and all the rest of it, didn't really. But I remember the scene that this is the one that he was talking about. And yeah, fine, great. Having now gone back and rewatched it, and having watched it in the context of we've fucking gone in so much detail over the last 25 episodes, and same with this one, that I'm now thinking, hang on, yeah, this kind of doesn't have the impact or the appeal I want it to, and it doesn't cheapen it for me, because again, seeing the way it's shot and seeing the way it's done, yeah, that fucking matte background was awful.
And do you know what's weird about that is, ordinarily, if this was better than Mario or any of the other shows, right, when we were watching a bad film but it had matte backgrounds and things like that instead of dodgy CGI, ordinarily I would be screaming from the rooftops about how pleased I am with that, because it looks better. Generally, I do think a good matte backdrop will look a lot better. Look at the original Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
You don't realize how much of that film is done on matte, because they're so fucking good. I'm talking about A New Hope now, right?
Yeah.
That's how, like, the entire award scene at the end where they're getting the medals, that's all a matte, right?
Yeah.
That's how good a matte background can be. This, though, looks fucking horrendous.
Well, it does,
I don't know what the hell, whether they've, I can't even put my finger on what's wrong because it's so bad. I think it's badly lit. Is what I think it is.
I was going to say the lighting's wrong, because you've got a light source directly behind them where you get this fucking miraculous parting of the clouds for the sun, but where they're being shot from, they're still in fucking darkness.
It just
doesn't
not
match,
right, is it?
It doesn't line up.
There's such a hard division between the mountaintop and the background. It's fucking terrible.
It is, and I mean, we're at a point as well. You're talking about a show that was costing $10+ million an episode at this point. Spend some fucking money on the way it looks.
Now, just to put that into perspective, $10 million an episode. We just 2 nights ago, which you would have heard by now as well, recorded an episode of SMPD about the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That cost $7 million. Okay, adjust for inflation and all of that. Yeah,
you're probably talking about 15 million with inflation.
Yeah, but even so, each one of these episodes costs nearly as much as an entire B-level feature film.
Yeah.
And you can't get a matte background right. Which on its own, by the way, matte is pretty much more expensive than CGI. Like, once you've done your initial outlay for CGI...
Well, yeah, once it's done, isn't it?
It's done, yeah? A matte background is real fucking artistry. You're paying a lot of people... And that's not to say CGI isn't. Don't jump on my dick, computer nerds. But you know what I mean. The equipment involved in CGI is finite. You have the computer, you do your setup and everything, and you start your renders, and you're away. With a matte background, though,
it's
you need physical things. It's hard graft.
Yeah.
And ordinarily, I would totally be on board with using matte. I think they look amazing when they're done properly. This one doesn't.
That's the key. When they're done right, they look amazing.
Yeah, but that's just a small part of this scene that pulls me out of it. As I say, my main issue with it is that everything they're going for is entirely cheapened, because this should have happened last week, or the fucking should have happened this week. Either way, but the fucking should have happened after this.
Yeah, definitely.
Because this now feels like not a step backwards in their relationship, but certainly they're at a plateau.
Yeah.
Which they literally are as well. Yeah. So maybe this was intended. I don't think so. No.
Don't buy that for a second.
No, because definitely the intention is, this is your end of the movie shot. This is your slow pan up, boy kisses the girl shot. Music swells. That's what we're going for.
Well, that's literally what you get.
Well, yeah, and that's what we're going for, but we don't feel that because they're already an item. If we'd carried the tension on between them through this episode, and the tension is great, the growth of their relationship over this episode is great. You know, from her starting off saying, "Don't you betray me, I'll cut your cock off," and then flirting with him on the wall, and then he saves her. Like everything is there. And in isolation, if this was indeed the first episode that you watched, I can totally understand that in isolation, you'd think all of this was amazing. But you've already seen them fuck last week.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a shame. Because honestly, all of it's good. And this shot is good. And, you know, I'm a John and Egret shipper. So even having... seen what went on last week with them fucking and stuff, I still got this, and I still got a bit of a warm fuzzy from it. It had the desired effect, but it's in terms of storytelling, it's just wrong.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And yeah, listen, I will always credit this episode as being the one that got me into the show, and having seen none of it, and then start at the beginning. By the time I got to this, I was kind of like, oh, okay, right, fine. So yeah, it's one of those. It'll always be a little bit special, but actually, as an episode and where it fits in the season and how it's put together with the rest of the season, it's kind of a mess.
It is. I mean, my summation, we've kind of whipped through this week actually, but as I say, that probably tells you how little has gone on in this episode. It is another boring episode with a few very good standout scenes. That's what this episode is. Just like last week's was. Yeah. John and Egret are fucking great. Yeah. But the ending just isn't as satisfying as it needs to be, as we said, because we don't open with them even. And that's the other thing. If you're going to end with them and build towards this, we should have fucking opened with them, not with Sam. Yeah. I just, these are such basic storytelling errors. Like the episode is called The Climb.
Yeah, that should be the key fucking focus.
It is about them climbing the wall. Why did we not open with them stood at the base of the fucking wall?
Yeah.
Like,
and then even you get Littlefinger's voiceover as well, but he's talking about, everything's a ladder, and obviously that'll come up later on. I won't say it pays off later on, but it's mentioned again later on. But this whole thing, again, it kind of fits with, we're talking about the climb, and that's fine, but it's just so fucking clumsily handled. And we don't see enough of the actual climb and the consequences of failure and the trials and tribulations of climbing that wall. Apart from, at some point, bearing in mind that dozens of people have already passed this point, Egret sinks a fucking spear in or an axe in, and the entire fucking wall comes down practically. Yeah. You just get this one little tap, because she's not fucking hammering it the way Tormund is. She taps it in, and the fucking thing splits in twain. So what the fuck is that about?
Dramatic effect. I'll give them that.
I'll give them that, except because it looks so fucking bad with the CG as well. It just pissed me off.
Yeah. It's not a great episode, is it? There are some very good bits.
I think to be fair, I think if you or I or listeners were to go back and listen to just the summation of every episode we've done, there will be a theme of it's shit, or it's shit but there are nice bits in it.
Well, that is kind of the basis behind the pod, isn't it? That we both know that there's things about this show that we love. That's why we watched it. That's why we're deciding to rewatch it. It's just unfortunately on the rewatch, we're starting to realise that there is far more that we don't like than we thought. Yeah. And we already thought we didn't like a lot.
Yeah, and I think the problem for me at this stage, I mean, we're getting close to halfway through the show.
Jesus, nothing's happened.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're getting close to halfway through the show in its entirety, and I can't remember. Actually, there might be one, which is the Jane Spencer episode in season 1. I can't remember us going, yeah, that was a really good fucking episode.
The Jane Spencer episode in season 1 was one, and there was one in season 2 as well. Written by another lady. I can't think of Vanessa Taylor. Now. Yes, first one she wrote was excellent as well.
Yeah. But yeah, so no, we've not gone, and this is episode 26, I think. Yeah, 26. So we're now talking that 24 of these episodes.
Oh, and Blackwater.
Oh, and Blackwater, yeah. So 23 of these episodes have been on a scale somewhere between dog shit and the chewing gum on the bottom of my seat.
That's the best description of Game of Thrones I've ever heard. And it gets worse. The longer the show goes on, the worse it fucking gets.
Well, the problem is,
So look
at some
forward to
point,
that.
I mean, when we get, I think it's the end of season 6, isn't it, where they overtake the books, and all of a sudden they haven't even got a blueprint to not read.
No.
Now they've actually got to make shit up, like proper storytellers. Then we're in all sorts of fucking trouble.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. For now, we're just in boring storytelling territory with very basic errors.
Yeah, that's right. As always, if you disagree with that, if you think we're kind of reaching, I did get sent something on Twitter last week, which was, I think the comment was along the lines of people trying to explain the flaws in Daenerys' story, and then it was a gif of a book of empty pages being, of blank pages being rifled through. So I mean, people are kind of divided on the show as to whether they think that it worked or it didn't, and I think it's pretty clear at this point which side of the fence we're on. But yeah, if you do disagree with us, you think we've got this wrong, please let us know and get in touch and we can talk about it. You can find us on Facebook with the Double Down Podcast Network, on Twitter at @DDPodcastNet. You can go to our website, ddpodcast.net, where the entirety of this show is, as well as the other shows we've referenced that we do as well. But yeah, please get in touch by all means. But until next time,
game over.